suspect probably most of you know, my name is Russ Petrus, and I am Executive Director of FutureChurch. And with me tonight are Martha Liggis and Olivia Hasty, who are both program associates with FutureChurch, and Anne-Marie Nocella, who is our development consultant with FutureChurch. So um, on behalf of all of us, welcome. We're really having a bit of an experiment tonight. I don't think, at least certainly in my time, Future Church has never done anything like this. And I think for a lot of folks, we kind of took it for granted that you knew me and you knew Deb over the course of many years of us doing this work together. But Anne Marie is one of those people. She's been around longer than I have, but she tends to stay in the shadows. So we wanted to bring her out into the light a little bit. And then, of course, even though they're not brand new, both Martha and Olivia have been here for about a year now, a little bit more than. So this is just a great way for us to kind of give you some insights into who we are, but also because it's such a small group that's joining us tonight, for you to get a chance to let us know about what's on your mind, what you're thinking about, what matters to you as we work on this work of changing the church we love together. So thank you for being here. If it goes horribly wrong, please forgive us. We'll never do it again. And if it's great, we'll do it again. And we'll come up with some new topics. So I'm really glad that you're all here tonight. I'm going to turn things over to Martha, who's going to lead us in a prayer for tonight. And Martha, if you give me just a second, I will put that on the screen for us as well.
So our prayer this evening is in honor of Saint Phoebe. September 3rd is the feast of Saint Phoebe. So this prayer was written by Maria Teresa Gaston. God of living water, you rush upon us today in our time, surprising us with your power, moving, pushing aside boulders in the great river of our church, opening new paths for our gifts to flow freely, for the sake of your beloved and broken world. Strengthen and refresh us anew each day. Saint Phoebe, pray for us. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Martha. Just before we let you all on, we drew straws to see who was going to go first. We didn't actually draw straws, but I told the rest of the team that I was less interested in hearing from myself than I was in hearing from them. So I'm going to go last. And I think we decided, Olivia, you were going to start.
Yes. Hello everyone. It's nice to be with you all tonight. I love being part of the team at Future Church, and I am just like so delighted to share a little bit about myself with each of you. I jokingly told the staff that I was going to open by saying that I'm a Sagittarius and a 2 on the Enneagram. So I'm still going to do that. So that's my sign, that's my Enneagram number. And I grew up in the Boston area in a little town called Holliston. Many people don't know where that is, but my mom taught me that it's the town over from where the Boston Marathon begins. So I think that's a little helpful to kind of place where I'm from. And I'm currently a doctoral student in the PhD program in theology at Boston College. So in addition to my work with Future Church, I'm also studying to be a theologian. That kind of sounds crazy, but that's true. And I was recently at Harvard Divinity School, and I went to undergrad at Holy Cross. And I went to a very conservative all-girls high school. So I've really been on kind of all of the sides of the theological, Catholic theological spectrum. I've been in the very far right, I've been in Jesuit land, I've been in the pluralism of Harvard Divinity School, and now I'm at kind of doing my own thing because that's what one does in a doctoral program. And so I'm looking forward to sharing where Future Church kind of fits into that trajectory. So my research and my general interest in Catholic theology centers the body as a critical component of Catholic discourse. So I like working with feminist, liberation, queer theologians and authors. And I'm interested in what our lived experiences tell us about our relationships to the divine. So instead of having the church tell us what to do with our bodies, what do our bodies tell us to do with religiosity or the church? Or what do our bodies tell us about how we know Jesus Christ? Because our unique embodied experiences are so different from each other's that there isn't one way that we can know Jesus Christ. So, kind of in all of those questions, how do we live out a truly ethical, moral, and devotional expression of faith? So that's a little bit about me. Um, Future Church has subconsciously been a part of my life for about the last 8 years, if I didn't know it was. I have a family member who gave a Catholic Women Preach homily in 2017 that I filmed for her. I helped her film it on an iPhone. I connected with Catholic Women Preach at the Ignatian Family Teach-In for Justice as an undergrad in 2018, multiple times over the course of my undergraduate education. And it was like my favorite touch point of that event. I had gone all 4 years and I always looked forward to seeing folks representing the table. And then in 2021, 2022, or was it 2023? It was 2023. I attended the Catholic Women Preach book launch at Boston College, kind of just all by accident. I was there, I was a Catholic woman, I was interested in preaching, and like I was just in the space. And then that summer I had been working in parish ministry while I was a grad student at Harvard Divinity School. And my cousin connected me with Russ because, as many people know, when you work in parish ministry, even if it's part-time, it's not part-time. And so I was feeling a little bit spread thin and I was looking for another job. And so I was connected with Russ, and the rest was really history. Um, and kind of this position happened. And it's been a real treasure to me. Being on the team at Future Church has been such a great part of my education, but it also has been a great resource for my spirituality. It's been the true place where making a way where there is no way is happening in the here and now, right? We've had conversations about topics that I care about, like embodiment, fasting during Lent. We've come up with new ideas. We've hosted an inaugural series. I'm sure Martha will talk a little bit about her project on emerging models of parish life. We've really done so much together in the last year. So it's been a real privilege to be a part of this team of amazing human beings. Um, I will also say, while I was preparing to give remarks today, I was told by my teammates to keep it casual. So I'm trying to, but I also want to just say that um, we had a staff retreat in January. And while I was preparing for today, I was thinking about that staff retreat and I was thinking about the things that had come up. Our goals, what we thought our gifts were. And I do think the real treasure of this group of people that I hope you see tonight, since I'm going first, I can sort of tee up everybody else's remarks, is that we have really met the goals that we set at that time because we work really well together and because we're all really supportive of one another's gifts, talents, and passions. Um, and so I also am glad that we have this time to reflect on who we are and who we are as a team, because we've gotten so much done in the last year. And if you've followed us and have seen what's going on, I think it's something to really be celebrated. And I think much of that will culminate on our team field trip to Rome in a couple of weeks, that I'm very much looking forward to. So that's my little blurb. I'm coming up on 5 minutes, so I'm going to be mindful of time, but it was really nice to meet all of you virtually. And I look forward to answering your questions in a little bit. I'll turn things over.
Great. Thank you so much, Olivia. And I think we said, Anne Marie, you were in the hot seat next. Anne Marie, you'll need to unmute.
Unmute. There. How's that? Is that good?
Yep, good to go.
I started this morning actually trying to figure out how long I had been with Future Church in some capacity, and wound up finding out that I have been with Future Church for almost 17 years. At least 12 of those full-time. What I do in my capacity at Future Church is I do the fundraising side of things. I work with, I'm considered a generalist, so I do a little bit of everything. Right now I'm doing major giving work, gift processing, and I'm about to start the 14th fall event that I've done. So I am a Cleveland native. I am also the only person in the Cleveland office these days. I have 16 years of Catholic education behind me. 12 of those I was taught by the Sisters of Humility of Mary in Cleveland, and then the other 4 by the Jesuits at John Carroll. I come from a Slovak/Italian family. My husband, Matt, and I think Matt's here somewhere. He might be hiding behind the screen, but we will be married 20 years at the end of this month. It is September. So between us, we have 14 nieces and nephews. Ranging from age 25 to 5. So they keep us very, very busy. Part of what I reflected on this morning, I went actually way back to when I was first hired, and I was invited to sit with the board members and meet them. And they introduced themselves to me, and one gentleman, Bill, introduced himself as a married priest. I didn't know, what do you mean we have married priests? We don't have married priests in the Catholic Church. So I let that go, and then afterwards I pulled him aside and said, can you please explain this to me? And it turned out that he had been ordained, left the church, got married. They have now been married 50 years. And in his continuing ministry, he chose to serve in hospice for when the people who were dying, they couldn't get a priest there on time. He served that mission and continued his work. And then I later learned that there's a whole organization called Corpus, who are the married priests of the Catholic Church who left but were ordained. So that was eye-opening for me. The second thing that I reflected on is that in 2011, we held a Mary Magdalene celebration, and we invited 3 women to preach. So they got to select the gospel that they wanted to preach on, and they went ahead and preached. And I have to say that to hear those female voices and their perspectives was very eye-opening to me. And I like to think that that was the beginning of Catholic Women Preach, which really came to fruition in 2016. So it's really been my honor over a lot of years to watch Future Church go from a very local Cleveland-based organization to a national organization with a national board, and then all of the international pieces that have come together in the last 6 or 7 years. I'm extremely fortunate to have been able to work with Chris Schenk, the founder, and then Deb, and then now Russ, and very fortunate to have Olivia and Martha. One of the transitions that happened, or one of the realizations at the staff retreat that we had back in January, was that somehow I became the eldest staff member. And that each of us is in a different decade. We won't say, but I will say that I am the eldest. So that has been very educational and very fun. And I'm just trying to embrace my role as the mother hen. So my hope is in those 14 nieces and nephews, 4 of them, all female, are my godchildren also. And my hope, even though we seem to sometimes take 1 step forward and 2 step back, is that someday that their talents and their roles in the church, that they'll be respected a little more as equals. So that's me. And I will turn it back to Russ.
Thanks, Anne Marie.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
Anne Marie downplayed a little bit of what she does. Future Church runs because Anne Marie is there. And if you've ever ordered anything from the Future Church store, Anne Marie was the one who fulfilled that order. If you ever donated and were supposed to receive a book, Anne Marie was the one who made sure you got the book. Anne Marie is the one who reminds both me and Deb years ago, and now just me, of what needs to be done on a daily basis. And so thank you for all you do, Anne Marie. I think we said Martha was going to, well, yeah, Martha's going to be next. So let's bring you up on screen here, Martha.
Yay. Thanks, Russ. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to be with you. Thanks for taking some time in your night to be with us. We don't take your time for granted, so thank you. I'm Martha Liggis, and I've been at Future Church now for 1 year. And I came by way of, I guess the start of the path was 4 years at Loyola University, Chicago. The Jesuits kind of started putting that thought in my brain that there was more to experience in church than I had been experiencing growing up. So it was kind of the first little nugget to sort of look beyond the church walls. And then after I graduated from Loyola, I spent a year doing service with the Franciscans in a program called the Change a Heart Volunteer Program. That was a lay community of 11 of us that volunteered around Pittsburgh for the year and lived in community. And it kind of continued my journey of there's more to church than the 4 walls of a church building. And as that journey progressed on, it led me to Boston College School of Theology and Ministry, where I studied for 2 years. And I think it was really in my time at Boston College that I realized that as much as I love being Catholic, and I am a cradle Catholic, and that's like how I see the world, there was this really strong disillusion with the institution of Catholicism. So I graduated at 24 years old with a passion for being Catholic and a total disillusionment with Roman Catholicism, and go, what the heck do I do now? What does one do with this degree? And kind of these feelings inside. And so it led me to teach high school theology and run a retreat program at a high school in Cleveland for about 7 years, and I really loved it. However, at the same time, still felt that sort of disassociation between some elements of the curriculum and how I wanted to live out my Catholic identity. Um, so then, yeah, I guess fast forward a little bit, and I found FutureChurch. Having been from Cleveland, I had known about FutureChurch kind of forever. It was sort of in the water growing up, with any sort of little progressive lens of Catholicism, you would know of FutureChurch. So I knew of the organization, but I think really in 2016, with the start of Catholic Women Preach, where I listened to every single preacher, overjoyed that there were women on the pulpit, kind of kept stirring in me this knowledge of the organization and this interest in what it was doing. But I think it was really feeling a longing to live my Catholic roots and use my gifts and use my degree in a way that didn't have to be so boxed in to a diocesan curriculum or parish life. I wanted kind of a broader understanding of how to live that faith. And so that's led me to FutureChurch, and something that I'm really grateful for is that in the last year I've been given some freedom to kind of play with that idea. So what I've been giving energy to that's excited me is the Pentecost Project that you may have heard of, where I've been reaching out and interviewing and talking to communities around the country that that I say are kind of blossoming out of Catholic roots. So another word I've been using and playing with that language is post-institutional, not necessarily belonging to the Roman Catholic institution, but using the fruits of Catholicism to do the good work of the gospel, whether it's worship communities or living communities, prayer groups, things like that. And while I'm working at FutureChurch, there's kind of two other hats that I wear. One is I'm a pastoral minister at the community of St. Peter in Cleveland, which is one of those communities that, although Catholic in nature, is independent from the diocese. So sort of living its identity in a way that is independent and free from institution. And I'm also working on a doctorate in ministry right now at Fordham University, where I'm studying the same idea of communities that are burgeoning out of institution, but doing so with a Catholic lens. Because for me, that's where some of the creativity and the energy can shine through. How to live being Catholic from your heart in a creative and imaginative way that isn't necessarily bound by some of the structural laws or rules that for me kind of got in the way of the fun stuff. So that's my story, my journey to FutureChurch and beyond. And as I said, I'm so grateful to be here and for you all for supporting who we are and what we do. Thank you.
Thanks, Martha. So, Martha, what year did you graduate from Loyola, Chicago?
Loyola was 09 to 13, 2009
Okay.
to 2013.
Okay. So it would have
Yeah.
been around like that 2013 time that you randomly stopped. No, it was later than that you
Wandered
stopped
down
into
the street.
office, wandered into the office, and that was the
Yeah,
first time.
I had a friend from Loyola. I knew her through our campus ministry program who was in town visiting. I was giving her a tour of one area of Cleveland, and we were walking down the street and we saw that we ran into the FutureChurch office. And we said, well, we have to go and see the FutureChurch people. So that's actually when I met Russ. It's when I wandered into his office.
And here we are these many years later working together. So it's a nice complete circle there. All right, so I get to go last. I was the Catholic kid growing up. So I went to a Catholic grade school. I was an altar server. I did all the Catholic things. I volunteered for everything. And then I went to an all-boys Jesuit high school, St. Ignatius High School here in Cleveland. And it was when I was in high school that my Catholicism really sort of reached um, peak nerdiness, because I actually had a band. Now, we weren't a contemporary, or we weren't like a Christian rock band, but we were like a contemporary liturgical music band. And we traveled all around the Cleveland area, um, providing music for Mass. And the worst part of it is that our name was the Heavenly Host. And I'm putting up a picture here of an article that was written in the Catholic Universe Bulletin, which was the Diocese of Cleveland's newspaper, that was written about us. And I still get a crack out of this headline. The band's upbeat music brings young people back to Mass. Um, and I don't know, that was sort of like a highlight of my life, when it was so small, when my life was so small. But I went then to Canisius College in Buffalo, New York, where I continued my Jesuit education. And all along my life, I had been pulled aside by priests, by teachers, by nuns, and they had asked me, had I ever considered ordination? And it was in college that I really confirmed for myself that ordination was not my path, that was not a life that I wanted. In college, I, came to know myself as a gay man, and I came to understand that I wanted to be in a relationship with someone. And as it turns out, in college, I met my husband, Daniel, who was actually voted in his high school graduating class. He went to Canisius High School in Buffalo, New York, the all-boys Jesuit high school in Buffalo. He was voted the most likely to become a Jesuit. Needless to say, he did not become a Jesuit. We're now married and living our best lives together here in Ohio. But anyhow, I knew that ministry was going to be something that I wanted to do. And in fact, I chose Canisius College because of their campus ministry program. And so I really put myself into that world. And then when I graduated from Canisius, I decided to go and get my Master of Divinity at Weston Jesuit School of Theology. And while I was at Weston Jesuit, I sort of landed into a youth ministry role, and I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed faith formation. And so that's the direction that my life took. And over time, I found myself back home in Cleveland, and I was working in an inner ring suburban parish, St. Dominic. And it was shortly after the election of Pope Francis that I had taken over the RCIA program. And Pope Francis brought would-be Catholics out of the woodwork, and we had enormous numbers of people join the RCIA program. And I kept getting really good questions about why can't women be ordained to the priesthood? Why can't priests be married? Why can't gay men or lesbian women get married in the church? And at the time, we had a wonderful parish priest, and it's still a great place to go and worship. But we had a very, we'll call him a stickler of a bishop. And so I knew from my Jesuit training how to answer those questions. And I would answer the questions the same way every time. Well, the church teaches, but there are those who say. And then I would give a recommendation of a book. Maybe it was a Beth Johnson book, or maybe it was a John McNeil book. But I always use that formula. The church teaches, but there are those who say, and if you would like to read about that, here's a book. And it was probably the 1,000th time I answered a question that way. And I was like, I'm one of those who says. I am one of those who says. And I just couldn't do that anymore. And so I was distraught, and I wondered what the heck I was going to do. After all, I had this Master of Divinity degree from a Catholic institution, and the world that I knew was parish life. And so I went online that day, and I saw the Future Church posting for a project or a program director position. And I knew Future Church a little bit from my time up in Boston because I knew of the Mary Magdalene celebrations that happened at Boston College. And so I decided to research the organization a little bit more. And I was like, they're people who say, here are my people who say. And so I applied for the position. Deb and I went out, we had some coffee and we had a nice conversation. Eventually I chatted with the board. And I think to borrow a phrase from Olivia, the rest is history. I couldn't be more thrilled to be with Future Church and to do the work that we do and to meet the amazing people that I get to meet day in and day out. Both Olivia and Martha have talked about Catholic Women Preach. I work behind the scenes on Catholic Women Preach. I work on all the videos. I work with all the preachers, getting them recording instructions, helping them troubleshoot. And I've met some of the most incredible women who are doing God's work out in the world. They're not just talking about it, they're living it. And that is such a thrill for me on a daily basis that I get to do that work and I get to meet these people. I'm aware that I'm sort of in an odd spot. I'm the first male director of Future Church, taking over after some really strong, amazing women have led the organization. And I see it as my role to keep the things going, keep the things running, but to find those who say, like Olivia, like Anne-Marie, like Martha, and like all of you, to find those who say, to count myself among you, and to lift up your voice in whatever way I can, and to leverage Future Church's resources and capacities to make sure that people always know that there are those who say. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for joining with us. I'm going to take off the spotlight now. We promised you some answers to some sort of silly questions. So I think I'm going to we're going to go in reverse order here. So I'll go first. I'll be the sacrificial lamb in this regard. So the question that Martha came up for me was, what is my favorite church song? And I have to say that this was really tricky for me because, as I showed you, I have this history of running a liturgical band. But my absolute favorite church song is Taste and See, the more setting of Taste and See. It, of course, has some problematic patriarchal language that is easily fixed. It's easily fixed, and that's how I do it. But I just love the gospel-inspired vibe and feel of it. And I have a dear friend, Liz, and we worked together at Canisius College. She sang and I played piano. She had an incredible voice. She has an incredible voice. And boy, did she sing that song. She sang that song the way I think the composer intended it to be sung. She ad-libbed on it. She added some little flavor and flair to it. And every time I hear that song, every time I play that song, I think of her. And I think of the special connection we had. And I think of the church's capacity when it's at its best to grow and create relationships and create something special. Liz and I are still friends and we still chat on the regular. And whenever we're in the same place, we get the opportunity to make music together. All right, who was the second to last? It was Martha. Martha, and your question was, what's your favorite book?
Yeah, thanks, Russ. I'm ad-libbing also to say that at our staff retreat, but at our board retreat this year, which the staff was able to attend as well to meet the board, which was lovely. We were in an old retreat house outside of Chicago, and maybe our second night, we decided to explore a little bit and wandered upstairs and found this beautiful chapel that we didn't even know was there. And in the corner is this piano. And it's probably 10 o'clock at night and it's kind of dark in the chapel, but we find some lights and Russ jumps on the piano. And so there's the Future Church board just in this chapel by ourselves singing whatever songs come to our head as Russ is playing. It was my favorite moment of the whole board retreat. So Russ is an incredible pianist. Anyway, okay, back to books. My favorite book, also a hard question because I love to read. And I don't know if anyone else has this experience, but for me, the time in your life when you read a book is what makes it most impactful. And so the book that I chose it's called A Million Miles in a Thousand Years by Donald Miller. And the reason I chose this book is because a campus minister gave it to me as I was graduating undergrad. And the whole book is about how to live a better story, like make your life a better story, a more readable story. And kind of like what Russ said, there's some God language that only uses male pronouns and some things that now I say I don't love this as much. But getting that book, graduating from college and being challenged to live a better story was just perfect timing. So that was Lauren Schwer at Loyola Chicago gave me that book. I think our next question was for Anne Marie, and it was, what's your favorite recipe, Mama Bear?
My favorite recipe is my mom's Italian wedding soup recipe. There it is. And the reason that it is in this format is because within a span of a couple of months, one winter, a couple winters ago, three of my elder nieces and nephews called and said, I need this recipe. But we need it with all the steps in it. And Nana only gave us, just the first 6 lines of it. So this is the result of my actually standing at the stove and making sure that they had all the information that they needed to produce the recipe. So I'll have Russ send this out in the right. You'll send this.
I will.
I would double this. I would eat some for dinner and then put the rest in the freezer for an emergency meal. Russ has had this soup. I will make sure the girls have this soup next time we're all together.
It's delicious soup.
It is. And now it is Olivia's turn.
Yes. So the question that was posed to me was quite difficult for me to answer. It was, what is my most used expression? And I'm a Gen Zer. I'm the youngest on the staff. Anne Marie and I are the bookends. And so I use Gen Z slang a lot. I'm also on the cusp of Gen Z and millennials. So I say slay a lot for those of you who know what slay means. It's just like, great job. Like, oh, that's such a slay. Or this is such a silly question. So I do that a lot, and I sometimes will like put it into words. So when Martha and I went to the Imago Dei conference in Dayton, Ohio, I was like, I can't believe we're at the Imago Slay conference in Slayton, Ohio. And then like we went to Lamont, Illinois, and I was like, I love Slaymont. So I do that a lot. But I also, in my life, I often ask people if things feel true. So instead of saying, is that right? I say, does that feel true? So those are my two most used expressions. But I will say that the music in the room on our board retreat was most certainly a slay. It was a very slay moment. So just I'll use it in a sentence. And that's me. I love that we ended on this very silly question.
We so we as a staff meet on Mondays and Fridays and then as needed, throughout the week. And Olivia is often giving, certainly Anne Marie and me, lessons on Gen Z slang. I think Martha is less dependent upon that, but every once in a while, Anne Marie and I are just completely lost in conversation. So we're very glad to have our resident expert, Olivia, to let us know what the trends and phrases are. So, as I said before, we want to turn things over to you. This is an opportunity for you to maybe share with us some of the things that are important to you, things that you have questions about. Maybe it's about the synod, maybe it's about women deacons, maybe it's about married priests, maybe it's about our personal work or our lives or whatever. Maybe it's a burning question you've had about FutureChurch, and we'll do our best to answer it. So if you would like to ask a question, I would just ask you all to use the little raise your hand option, which is in your React button. So if you hit the React button and then you do raise your hand, that way I'll know how to call on people in order. And if your question is for a specific person, just please let us know that as well. And I do see that, Kathy, you have your hand up. So why don't you go ahead, Kathy?
This has been very interesting because I live in Alaska, which is a long ways from Cleveland. And it's good to know that you really are all humans. I appreciate that.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kathy. I meant to mute myself and I accidentally muted you. Go ahead, continue on. I'm sorry.
I know that you're all going to Rome during the Senate, I think. Anyway, I'd like for you to maybe expand on them. Why are you going and what do you hope to accomplish? I'm doing a retreat on the 14th. I'm leading a retreat. And part of my assignment is to give a talk on the synod and where we're at. So.
Great. Yeah. So I guess I'll start. And if anyone else wants to fill in, please do feel free. So this is a part of our Mary Magdalene Goes to the Synod project. And so FutureChurch started working on expanding the lectionary to include more women, certainly on our Sundays, but there are also women who are made optional in our readings. There are women who are just completely sliced out, like Phoebe is. There are stories who are misrepresented in our lectionary. Take, for instance, Mary Magdalene. On Easter Sunday, Mary Magdalene, we don't hear that Mary Magdalene is the first commissioned to go and proclaim the resurrection by Jesus, and that she does that. There are also women who are moved to weekdays. So for instance, you actually do hear that story of Mary Magdalene going and telling the others, but it's on Tuesday, not on Sunday, when it seems like it makes more sense to say. So FutureChurch has been working on this for a long time. And so this is a continuation of that work. And what we're going to do while we're in Rome is we've been collecting signatures to our open letter to the dicastery for divine worship, to ask them to expand at least the Sunday readings to include all of Mary Magdalene's story. So we'll be delivering those signatures. We also are planning a Mary Magdalene celebration in Rome to highlight some 30 women who are hidden by our lectionary that we've been able to pinpoint. So we'll do that celebration. We're also going to have gobs and gobs and gobs of postcards and prayer cards in different languages and with different links that we're going to pass out and we're going to take to the synod delegates. And we're going to wander around Rome and sort of make sure that the people that we encounter have this empowering art of the scriptural Mary Magdalene. We're going to try to get some meetings with the dicastery for the doctrine of faith. And we're going to engage in some service work, especially with organizations that work with women and LGBTQ people. And we're going to be working with our friends who are also going to be in Rome. So we're going to be with Women's Ordination Conference, Catholic Women's Council, and Discerning Deacons, helping to amplify their messages and to collaborate with their work. So we're going to get into good trouble, I think is the point, and hopefully move this conversation along.
Good, thank you. You're going to be very busy.
And just to add to that real quick, Kathy, something that we're excited about is we've been brainstorming ways in which we can share with you all what we're doing and what it looks like and what it feels like and who we see, knowing that we represent you. we are the face of Future Church when we're there, but we are representing the Future Church community. So to try to, we're thinking of, do we blog, do we vlog, what's it look like, to make sure we're very clearly sharing what it feels like, what it's like to be there, and the good trouble that we're causing.
Thank you.
Great question, Kathy. Thank you. Rita, you've got your hand up. I don't know if you have a question or if you want to jump in on here too.
Well, I don't really have quite the question, but I do want to point out, first place, what a delight. It was extremely fantastic to meet Martha and Olivia at our board meeting. And I already knew Anne Marie, and I owe much to Anne Marie's vigilance in all of the letters. But what I wanted to just add, I'm also privileged. I'm going to be going to Rome, as well as my friend Diane Dragonetti and Lucy Rieger. And we were a trio who met at the last pilgrimage to Rome in 2019. So it's just a little bit of a testimony, like Martha and Olivia, shared how they got to know Future Church. Well, I was on the board already. In fact, I was the first non-Cleveland. I was the first outsider on the board in 2008. But these two women are passionate about the Mary Magdalene as a result of being on that trip. So I just wanted to thank Russ because he led that trip. The other thing, and Russ has fabulous ideas for we're going to not just have postcards, we're going to have holy cards with a prayer on the back. One of the things I want to suggest is we're probably going to have that paragraph 13 from the Instrumentum Laboris. It says, God chose women to witness the resurrection. We're going to have those exact words and remind them. So we're really bringing Mary Magdalene to Rome, and Russ is investigating. We're going to get banners. So we're going to walk around. I don't know about you guys. I'm walking around with banners. I'm looking into T-shirts with the art because it's so hard. You can't deny when you have a piece of art in front of you and it says John 20, verse 17, and it shows you this image. It's hard for someone to deny and tell you that you're making up stuff, or that you're overreacting, or that you, quote, want power. No, we want scripture, and we would like you to listen to Jesus's teaching and follow. So it's just preparing for this is just so exciting, and and I can't wait. And then quickly, Russ has been writing all these notes to people to see where we can have our celebrations, and we have some great opportunities to connect with the Caravitas group in Rome. There's a lot of academics. We have opportunity to connect with the actual Church of Mary Magdalene. And the Taizé community. So just physically being there, I think, is going to bring so much and bring Future Church to so many people. And there's plenty more, but other people probably have questions, and I just wanted to add that. And I can't say how wonderful it's been working with Russ and Martha and Olivia, and of course our wonderful Anne Marie.
Thanks, Rita. You too. Okay, Monica, I see you've got your hand up. Go ahead, Monica.
In June, I heard Barbara Reed speak at a conference, and she had mentioned that there were 15 women who had got together and written to Rome for officially to be allowed to preach with homilies. And, with all the work that Future Church does with the Catholic women preach, which I usually always listen to. I was just wondering if you've ever facilitated any of them officially asking to be preachers in Rome, for homilies.
We have not done that as Future Church. With Catholic Women Preach, our preacher coordinator and Catholic Women Preach partner, Betty Ann Donnelly, was a part of that group that was at the Aquinas Institute with Barbara Reed in the summer, who did develop that letter. And sent it on to Rome. Now, the really great news about that is that that made it into the Instrumentum Laboris for this next assembly of the synod, to allow women and men, lay women and men, to preach even in the context of the Eucharist. And of course, that's been the sticking point, is that lay people can't preach in the context of a Eucharist at the homily time, right? So that time that's designated right after the gospel. So different parish communities have tried to skirt that in different ways and everything. So the idea that we would be opening up the homily to allow for women and laymen to preach, it's definitely one of the very exciting things that's coming out of the Instrumentum Laboris. Yeah. So we were tangentially involved in that, Monica. Yeah. So good question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Feel free to raise your hand if you don't know. Oh, when is the trip? Let's see. So we are leaving September 30th. Martha and I are leaving from the Cleveland Hopkins International Airport. We're meeting Olivia in Newark. Olivia's gonna fly from Boston to Newark. Then we're gonna get on a plane and we go straight from Newark to Rome. So we leave on September 30th. And then we will be there for that first week of the synod and leave on that Saturday. Jan, I see you've got your hand up. Just go ahead and unmute yourself, Jan. Yep.
Okay, yeah. This not a question, but just an affirmation of tonight's gathering. Really appreciate the opportunity to, hear Olivia and Anne Marie and Martha and you, Russ, just share your call to ministry throughout your life. And I thank you for answering that call, because you help the rest of us in community of Future Church to continue in our own ways how we are called to church in the broad sense, and to know this is a wonderful place to be able to experience that. And so just affirm your work, affirm your passion, and affirm your call. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Jan. That means a lot.
Mm.
And it's I do have to say, it's gatherings like these, and it's even like the question and answers after some of our more formal kinds of programs, that we're often talking about for for days afterwards, because it is these gatherings that give us so much energy and life and fire to continue to do what we do. So you are all just as important. And when you show up and you ask good questions, you make good comments, that really energizes us too, and gives us, the strength to keep going. Because, this work is hard and it can sometimes be very frustrating. I think Anne Marie said sometimes we take a step forward and 2 steps back, and that can get exhausting. And we wouldn't be able to do it without all of you. And yeah, so thank you for what you do.
Yeah, it's like something that you said, Kathy. You're in Alaska and you liked seeing that we were just real people instead of a screen. That goes both ways. It's so nice to see real faces and know that like the work that we are pushing for is for real people that exist. And it's so heartening.
Mhm.
It's really neat for me in these sessions to because the names, I'm processing the names to put the names with the faces that I review every day. And so that's really, I'm recognize these names that are on the screen. So that's really neat for me. And I'm also the one that gets the all the lovely notes that come in with the donations that are forwarded to the rest of the staff. So it means a lot. And they come on days when you need them. So
I'm going to jump in here. I also wanted to say thank you for the liturgies on Sunday. Ariel does those, and I wouldn't even be here. I wouldn't be part of the church, anything, as you've all said, if it hadn't been for that during the pandemic, because it kept me connected to a Catholic community that I could identify with. And I have met people all over the country, it's in some in other countries also through that. And it's been powerful. So, and I know that takes a lot of work. And Ariel isn't here now, but I know Russ did it for years. And at least during the pandemic, he kept it all going. And we still love his music on it. But it's wonderful to do. And I just thank you for that.
Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, the liturgies of the word, that was actually like a spawned idea during the pandemic that was like, we need to find a way to keep people together. And we were hearing from people who were like tuning into their church's live stream mass that like they even missed just like even the fact that every once in a while there was a woman who was the lector, or there was a woman who was the Eucharistic minister, because during the pandemic it was the priest who was doing everything. The priest was reading the readings, who and so they were just missing that presence. So in pretty quick time, we were able to turn something around. Of course, it evolved
Yeah.
because first it was just like the liturgy of the word, and then we added some music to it, and then we did some breakout sessions, and so it sort of evolved over the years. And I love when I get the email from Ariel saying like, "Hey, could you record X, Y, and Z for this week?" Because one of the things that sometimes happens is there's patriarchal, masculine language in one of the songs, and so you can't just pull up a recording of it anymore. So I go over to my little setup over here, and I record something with non-patriarchal language and send it over, and I'm glad to be a part of those liturgies in that way too. Yeah. All right, let's see. Linda, you've got your hand up. So if you could go ahead and unmute yourself, Linda, and ask your question or make a comment.
Yeah, thanks, Russ. I just put it, actually, I put it in the chat because I was thinking we'd probably run out of time. Can you hear me?
Yes, yep.
Okay. I was just going to comment on, I, like the others, or many of the others, I enjoyed this evening getting to know people a little bit more, getting a feel for personality and names and faces, that type of stuff. But I wanted to mention about the synod, and I put it in the chat, but in the late 80s, when we had the synod on the laity, our NAM at that time, I was in a leadership kind of role with NAM, the National Association for Lay Ministry. And we held a parallel synod in Rome at a hotel, actually. We commandeered a hotel and had a couple hundred people there, and conference rooms and all that kind of stuff. Brought in speakers, different speakers from our organization who were prominent in both theological and ministerial fields, et cetera, et cetera. And then in the evening, the bishops would come over, a number, the American bishops especially, would come over and talk to us, because in those days, the news was blocked out they weren't giving any press conferences or any kind of news from what was going on. And nor were there there were lay observers, but there were no real members who could talk on the floor or anything like that. So it was just a phenomenal experience. So I'm thinking, maybe in the future, if there's any other kind of thing like that happening, whether it's next year or whenever, might be something that Future Church could be, perhaps with other organizations, foster something that would not only be not in a negative way, but in a positive way, complementing the official whatever is happening with the lived experience of the people who are living that theme that we're developing at that time, if that makes sense. So anyways, I just wanted to throw that in the pot because it seems like something we could do. And it seems like there'd be a lot of people that might want to be part of something like that. This October would have been great to be able to do something like that. But too soon. Anyway, but thanks for having this. This is good.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. Thanks. That's a really cool suggestion. I know like the Roman Catholic women priests held that simultaneous liturgy of love, Eucharist of Equals during the Eucharistic Congress in Indianapolis. And I thought that was just such a beautiful witness. So yeah, so thank you for that. That's a really good suggestion.
Yeah.
That's right up Martha's alley too.
Yeah.
All right. Joe or Martha, do you want to say something?
No, I thought you were wrapping up.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's go to Joe here, and that'll be our last question. I see we have a heckler in the audience, Anne Marie, who has asked you for more banana bread. But let's go to, or zucchini bread. I'm sorry. Let's go to Joe.
Well, I really appreciate it this evening. I mean, if church is anything, it's community, and if community is anything, it's human relations. And so the humanity of the staff in your talks and some of the conversation has been good. The other comment I had was I loved what you said, Martha. I think you called it post-institutional ministry. I guess I've been saying for a number of years post-denominational. But I think institutional might even be better. I was really connected to Future Church in its beginnings. Was close to Lou Trivison and some of the others in the founding, and didn't miss the early October or fall events for a long time. Then I kind of got disillusioned because it seemed like, can you ever reform those institutions? Maybe you just have to leave them behind. But I think the kinds of things that I see Future Church doing more recently have prompted me to get reconnected. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Joe. Thanks for being there at the foundations and laying the groundwork that allowed, all of this to happen. So that's so important. And maybe this is a good question for others to answer too, Martha and Olivia and Anne Marie. For me, I do feel that pull to just leave the institution in our dust and go do our own thing. And I feel like in some ways, Future Church does that and other organizations do that too. But I do feel a responsibility to be sort of my sister and brother's keeper in parts of the world who don't always have that. I don't know that choice or that option. And so like I know like I could pack up and leave any day I wanted to and I'd be just fine. But I think of, when I was in parish ministry, I did a lot of work in El Salvador. We had a partner parish in El Salvador. And when I was there, I came to realize just how dependent the poorest of the poor of El Salvador were on the church. And, I want to make things better for them too, So yeah, like it's easy to get disillusioned, and some days you need to like close the laptop, walk away and go for a walk and sort of turn your brain off for a little while. But then I think of those people in El Salvador, and that's part of my motivation for staying around and continuing to do the work we do. And I don't know if Martha, Olivia, Anne Marie, and any of you want to speak to that too, because it's such a great topic, Joe.
Yeah, I can jump in here. I went to an Opus Dei high school, and my mom is on the call. And so I was very lucky to have parents who, when I learned really harmful things, they'd be like, that's really not what you're all about. An example I love to use is I went on a retreat once and I thought it was going to be a really fun experience. I think my friends on the staff have heard me tell this. I thought it was just going to be a really great spiritual space, but it ended up being a retreat where we learned how to set tables and make beds and fold napkins, which is a very gendered experience to take young women to a place to learn to do those things. And I remember going home and telling my parents, and I think my mom said something like, that's a really useful skill. You should make your bed. You should know how to set the table, but like that is not the only thing that you have to offer to this world. Um, but when I went to college after being in an Opus Dei environment, I was like, I don't want to be Catholic anymore. And I knew that I believed in God and that I felt really connected to Jesus, as a person who existed and who did good things, but I didn't want to be Catholic anymore. And I had the like typical Jesuit educational experience where you find your magus, and if you get put in that one perfect class that opens your heart to liberation theology, right? Like I got really lucky. But I think having been on both sides of that coin, I really struggle with the question of should I stay or should I go? And right now I'm in the stay of it all because I have a lot of hope in spaces like this. I have a lot of hope in places like Future Church that I can be a Catholic that goes to some sort of mass on Sunday, at a church that reflects my values, right? I'm really lucky to be in Massachusetts. I'm really lucky to be in Boston where I can find a place to go like that, at a school like BC. Um, but also come to a space like Future Church where we can both commiserate over the things that upset us and just this was something we said often at the board retreat about a month ago, and just do the thing, make a way where there is no way, as I said in my remarks. I think that's really what we're trying to do here. So I'm not sure if that totally answered the question, but I think the question of like, should I stay? Should I go? What's the point of it all if nothing's ever going to change is one that I grapple with on the daily. So thanks for bringing that into the space, Joe.
I like that how when you said, should I stay or should I go? And you found your route in staying. I think I'm the other way. I found my route in going. And by going, I mean going away from the institutional structure that is Roman Catholicism. But in going away from that, I've gone, I've moved towards creative ways to live my Catholic faith. So I guess I don't like the binary question of leaving or staying. Because I think it could be so much richer than that. I'm leaving the institutional structure in order to be Catholic and be free. Um, and I don't feel shackled to the need to say that I'm institutionally belonging to this entity. However, I can still claim to be Catholic because I am. That's how I see the world. That's my worldview. So to be able to live in that comfortability of not being tied to, and yet seeing what can blossom when you release those ties has been a lot of fun for me. And I don't think I've ever been more Catholic than when I have left institutional Catholicism. And for me, I had to get okay with like finding the language to describe that in a way that felt true. Yeah.
You can see why both Martha and Olivia are amazing additions to the Future Church team. So we're going to wrap things up here, but I just want to say a quick prayer as we close out. We give you thanks, O God, for this day, for this opportunity to gather. We give you thanks that you continue to build, you continue to create. You continue to create community, you continue to create church. You continue to create us. We give you thanks that you welcome us to be partners in that work, in that sacred work of creating something beautiful and something worthy of your name, something worthy of our lives, the lives you give to us. Bless us as we go our own ways tonight. Give us patience with ourselves for the things that we've left unaccomplished today, and give us hope for tomorrow. And we ask this all in Jesus' name. Amen.